Hello, here we are entering week 7 of our Through My Bible in 1 Year series. And so as you had already finished up Genesis, so now we're coming into the end of Exodus. And you've already finished then also Paul's letters to the Galatians and Ephesians. And this week you will wrap up Philippians before moving into the epistle to the Hebrews. And in preparation for this past week's readings, I'd asked you to note the difference between moral law and Israel's civil law, as we have all sorts of laws in the Old Testament, and actually, percentage-wise, very few of them actually apply to us. Moral law, such as we find in the Ten Commandments, is that which applies to all people of all time. You think of some of those commandments. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. And Jesus reaffirms those things in the New Testament. These things are commands that are for all people of all time, and as such convict us of our guilt when we see that we do not keep God's 10 commandments. At the same time, there are so many commandments that really don't have anything to do directly with us. Israel's civil law, you had read this week commands for the construction of the tabernacle and its furnishings. You shall make an ark of acacia wood. And this is what you shall offer on the altar regularly every day. Well, those don't apply to us. Those were laws given to the Israelites. They were just meant for a certain group of people at a certain time in human history. How do we differentiate between the two? Well, when we have a command of God that's upheld in the New Testament as incumbent upon all people, then we know that that's part of God's moral law. When we have a command that's so very specific, it must only apply to a certain group of people at one time, then we know that that's part of the civil law. And especially in view of the epistle readings that you read this past week, I'd asked you, if you're keeping a list of notes as you go through this, to list the practical ways we can fulfill God's purposes for His church. And you may have come up with different things, and I'm sure they're all very good. What I had come up with in thinking of that too was that we have to start from the right point. And the starting point for us doing anything is what Christ did for us. And that affects our attitude, as Paul says in Philippians chapter 2. Then going back to Ephesians chapters 5 and 6, our daily interactions with our family are just as important in fulfilling God's purpose for the church as any grand purpose or project in the church itself. God wants us to live out our lives of faith in the simplest interactions that we have. Husbands, love your wives. Children, obey your parents, and so on. And also, you saw highlighted in Ephesians chapters 5 and 6, how we actively choose to attach ourselves to the means of grace. Put on the full armor of God and not to worldly temptations. Paul warns against those things in Ephesians 5. Now, as you look forward to finishing up Philippians, going into Hebrews, and also finishing up Exodus and going into Leviticus, first of all, looking at those Old Testament selections of yours, I'd ask you to ask this question of yourselves: what can I learn about God even from those laws that I am not obligated to obey? You read all sorts of things that aren't asked of you by God, and you wonder, why does God have me read this? What does this have to do with me? Well, they still do teach us something about God, and we can discern something about who He is from all of these laws. We can also, secondarily, give thanks to God that we don't have all those laws on us as a burden to our consciences. And then, especially looking at those New Testament readings, consider this question: what particular pitfalls do Christ's redeemed people need to avoid in living their lives of faith? God's blessings to you as you continue through week 7 of your Through My Bible in 1 Year series, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.